Welcome to Unshakable with Human Design, the show dedicated to helping entrepreneurs use human design to shift from hustle to flow without sacrificing results. Come here to become an unshakable human and build an unshakable business according to your human design. I'm your host, Nicole. Hello and welcome to Unshakable with Human Design, everybody. I'm your host, Nicole. We're here together again for another installment in our Centers series. This is the 8th of the 9. We only have 2 of these left. We have this one and then we have one more, which is the Throat Center, which will be coming out next Wednesday. So make sure that you stay tuned for that. If you're loving this series, please share it in your Instagram stories and tag me. I'm at Nicole Official. Let us know what you thought about this. I would love to hear what you're getting out of this series because this has been really fun for me to put together. I love doing this where I get into this space with a particular aspect of the chart because it's fun to do these where we go deep into an aspect of human design. Let's explore this. Let's talk about what this actually means. And I can explain it my way, which I love to do. So today we are diving into the Ajna Center, which is the center of the mind. Now, a lot of times I think people get confused. What's the difference between the head center and the Ajna Center? Because they are very much connected. The Ajna Center is always under pressure from the head center. The head center is mental pressure. And it's pushing down on the Ajna Center all the time, saying, figure it out, do something with this. So the awareness center that is the Ajna Center is always turning on concepts. It's always kind of spinning and trying to figure things out. And it does it in 2 different ways, depending on whether you have it a defined Ajna or whether you have an undefined Ajna. That's going to determine kind of your relationship to this. Let's think about this from another perspective. If something is defined, it is consistent, it is fixed. And if we have something undefined, it is variable, it is open, it is more fluid, it's receptive. So different ways of approaching this whole idea of ideas, concepts, thoughts, opinions, rationalizations, solutions, answers, the question, all of those things are themes of the Ajna Center. They're all themes. So what's interesting is when we go into these from a higher level, this is the center that is trying to come up with all of those things, take the inspiration from the outside world or from the head center and trying to make it into something. How can we make this into a system? How can we make it into a concept? How can we make it into an insight? What's my opinion on this? It's always doing that. We have busy minds because of that. So that's what the Ajna Center's job is to do, is to make sense of things. And it's trying to do it all the time. Even when things are not ours to make sense of, even when things don't need to be laid out in a perfect process. If you have a defined Ajna, it probably always wants to do that. Now, there are benefits to everything. There are benefits to defined stuff, and there are benefits to undefined things. I have a completely wide open Ajna. I have a very open mind. Now, the way that I always think about this stuff is when you have something that is defined, it's fixed. So you have a fixed way of thinking if you have a defined mind. If you have a defined Ajna, you might have a fixed way of thinking that once you think something a certain way, it can be difficult to change that thought, to change that belief. Now, if you're listening to this show, I'm guessing that probably you've tried to rewire limiting beliefs. You understand the concept of limiting beliefs. You have these great thinkers. These are concepts that they came up with to say, here's how the mind works, and here's how beliefs influence our behavior. It's a concept. That's something that came out of an Ajna Center. It came out of the mind. It came out of their experience and through what they knew, turning it into a concept. That's what the mind does. But when you have a defined Ajna, when you have a defined mind, those beliefs that you have may be slightly more difficult to change. Because once you think a certain way, it can become fixed. Because the process that you take things through in order to make it into an opinion, into an insight, into a thought, into a belief, or whatever it is the same, or relatively the same. when you make a thought, when you make an opinion, when you make a rationalization, when you come up with a solution, if you have a defined ajna, then you have sort of like a step-by-step process of doing that. Your mind says, oh, we know how to do it. We take the thought and we turn it down here and we put it through step 2 and then we put it through step 3 and then we come out with a concept. It has a process for doing that. And if the process is similar every time, you might get a similar result every time. So it can be more difficult, sticky, to change anything that's fixed. Same thing with the G Center. When we talk about the G Center, changing your identity when you have a defined identity center can be more difficult than the people who have an open identity center, because all they have to do is go be around somebody else and they start to feel different. Now they have to know what's happening there and they have to know how to work with that in order to use that to their advantage. That's what learning to work with your design is all about. How do I work with what I have? There's not good or bad. There's just yours, and whether you know how to use it or not, whether you know and are aware of what's happening, or are you asleep to it and running on autopilot? If you're asleep to it and running on autopilot, then you allow the same inspiration to create the same thoughts over and over and over again. That's saying that there's some millions of thoughts that you have every single day, and 90% of them are the same thoughts you had yesterday. I think this is extra true for the people with the defined ajna, because that process is so fixed, because it is so repetitive and the same, that it can be harder for them to wake up to the idea that what they think is not the only way. Now, the flip side of this is that they can have really strong opinions and they can change the way we think because they have such belief in them. They're so certain. High expression of the ajna is certainty. But you got to learn to work with that. You can't be closed-minded. And that's a challenge for a lot of people with defined minds. My son, he knows everything. He's got a defined head and a defined ajna, and that boy is just like, I know that already. I know that already. We're working on this, he and I, on softening his way of taking in information to really trust what he knows, but also to be open to what other people say. This is one of my constant things that I'm working on with him, with compassion, with sweetness, not making him feel wrong for being the way he is, but trying to open his way of thinking. Why? Because that will make him incredibly powerful. If you can have that level of certainty, if you can have strength, if you can have really strong thoughts, I mean, if you have a defined head and ajna, your thoughts are real powerful. You will overcome someone who has openness there, more than likely, because they're more malleable. They're more open to changing their mind. And people who have defined are less open to changing their minds. But if they can become open to other people's ideas, to accept them, to at least contemplate them, and be open to the possibility that somebody else has something to offer, then there can be incredible, incredible strength with that. And that's the beauty of knowing my son's chart. I get to see these things about him and to not get upset that he always does things this way. It's right for him to always do it that way. That's natural for him. But how can I open him up to the highest gifts of what he has? And that's the same thing for you. That's the difference between learning about your human design and just hearing the words that are coming out of my mouth and actually embodying your human design and starting to work with it and notice how it's actually happening every single day in your life. It can be hard to do on your own because we're very close to our process. If you're asleep, sometimes it's hard to know that you're asleep and you're dreaming. Not until you wake up and you go, that was a dream. Wow, did that feel real? That's why inside my programs and inside my world, I'm always pointing out to my clients, do you see how this is your defined ajna working right here? What if we opened it up here? What would happen? Do you see how that's your gate 29 showing up again and again and again? It's in the shadow a little bit. Do you see that? It can be so hard for us. We hear this stuff, we know the definitions, but to see it at work and to catch it while we're operating in it, that's the advanced stuff. If you are interested in that, my Unshakable Human program, is officially open. So if you are listening to this podcast right now, you can get in the doors there. You can buy that program if you are into embodying your design. It is a comprehensive program, lifetime access to the digital course. We have some live sessions that will be running if you join the live session. If not, you'll get access to that new module that I'm creating right now as we open it. It's an amazing program. This is all about embodying your human design. So if you've ever wanted to step into your business of human design, this is that first step. You embody your design first. You become unapologetically you. You understand how you're operating, when you're in alignment, when you are not. You know the difference between those things. You now work in flow without resistance versus fighting resistance all the time and just purely going on adrenaline, which will burn you out and ultimately usually hurt your results. This program is going to take you into that ease and flow from the hustle. So if you're interested in that, DM me the words unshakable human, just those 2 words, DM me those and we'll send you the link to the sales page so you can learn more about it. Now let's talk about the undefined ajna. Undefined ajna, open-minded, doesn't have a fixed way of processing information, doesn't have a fixed way of thinking, is open to everything. But you know what comes from that? Uncertainty. Because we don't have a process, so it's hard to trust something that you don't have a process, that you don't really feel, that you consciously operate it. It's just doing its own thing. It takes things in, and then sometimes it comes up with an idea, and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes that idea is crazy because it's out of the box, because you're an out-of-the-box thinker. And that sometimes can feel a little bit tough to trust. What if I say something nuts? But this is the game. You have to learn to trust that. You have to learn to trust that maybe the world needs your weird thought at that moment. Maybe the world or that group that you're in or the person you're sitting in front of needs to hear your weird, crazy idea. But like everything with thoughts and opinions, it needs to be asked for. You can't go forcing them on anyone, no matter what definition you have in your head center or your Ajna center. Your thoughts need to be asked for. But we offer something different. And that's the beauty of human design, when you can start to see how your uncertainty is holding you back, but uncertainty is a low frequency of an open Ajna center, which you have, then you can start to find your own productivity. You know where you have to push through. You know where you need to say, I can't be certain, because I'm never going to be certain. That's my not self keeping me stuck. That's the tail wagging the dog. And when the tail wags the dog, we don't get the results that we want. And people don't trust us. People trust people who are being really grounded in who they are. When you're being truly who you are, when you're saying what you mean, and you are showing up in alignment with your own energy, people feel that. Alignment has a frequency, and that's a frequency that people respond to. And that's what magnetism is. You'll start pulling the right people, the right opportunities, the right ideas to you when you're in alignment. When you're not in alignment, you're actually not even paying attention to that stuff. You're so fixated on what you're trying to get done, or how uncomfortable you are, or how frustrated you are, that you miss all the opportunities that are coming to you. Or you're attracting lessons rather than the results and the opportunities that you want. Because the universe needs to course correct you. You're drawing things to you that are going to bump you back onto your path of alignment, which can be really uncomfortable. If you feel like you've been learning lessons for a long time and you haven't been walking in a path toward anything because you've just been getting bumped around, then that's a sign that you've been out of alignment for a long time. I hear from people all the time telling me that they've been learning about human design, they've been listening to this podcast, they've read all the books, they've taken all the courses, some of them have even gotten certified to be human design teachers, to be instructors, to do readings, and they still feel like they are not in alignment, that they are not on their path, that they don't feel like they are really tuned into it. But when I ask them questions, they say, well, I know that, I know that, I know that. I don't care what you know. It's what have you embodied. And embodiment comes with actually doing the work. We don't manifest with our thoughts. We manifest through this body. I don't want the thought or the idea of money. I want to hold it in my hand or see it in my bank account. I want it to be a real thing. We do that through the body. We don't do that purely through our thoughts. The thoughts are what we start drawing things to us with. But we bring it into reality through our reality, through our physical body. Embodiment is necessary. And if you haven't embodied, then you're missing the boat. And that's why you're sitting in this state of maybe things are kind of working, but you don't feel great about yourself. That's not a fun place to be. I know, because I've been there. I did a lot of thinking. I remember there was a movie with Ben Stiller, the Walter Mitty movie, where he basically lived his life in his head and not out in the world. You don't want to be that. Human design is not something to be learned. It's a system that is used to show you who you truly are. But you've got to walk the walk. You have to start noticing these energies, these tendencies, these ways. What's your way? Can't do it your way if you don't know what your way is. You're doing it somebody else's way, and that probably isn't going to work for you unless they're just like you. And if you haven't found that yet, then maybe it's time you find your way. And that's what the Unshakable Human program is all about. 6 weeks together. It is lifetime access to the program, so you can buy this program at any time and get massive results from it. It will change who you are, or it'll bring you back to who you really are. It'll change your relationship to yourself. When you change your relationship to yourself, you change your relationship to other people. People see you differently. People react to you differently. You do get more of what you want in life when you are being more of who you're meant to be. I think I'm going to leave that there. That was something that came out of my open Ajna out of nowhere, and I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to go further because I might screw it up. That was kind of eloquent, so I'm going to leave it there. So thank you so much for being here. If you'd like to learn more about the Unshakable Human program, DM me the words Unshakable Human on Instagram. I'm at Nicole Official, and we will send you all of the details there. We also have the link in the show notes for you if you would like to look at it there. Just hop on over to the show notes and we'll take you over to the website. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. I appreciate you listening to this series. This has been super fun. Thank you so much. And remember, in order to have an unshakable business, you must first become an unshakable human. So thanks for letting us help you become unshakable with human design, everybody. We'll see you next time.
If you love this episode and you're a fan of the show, please show us the love on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to the show and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with other entrepreneurs on their human design journey, join our free Facebook community, Human Design for Entrepreneurs. Go to nicoleno.me/podcast links to join the group, book a human design reading with me, or access our free human design resources. We'll see you there.